Well, welcome to Norrköping Symphony Orchestra's Soloist Interviews. This is our second installment of the Rachmaninov project, and it's a great pleasure to welcome back Valentina Lisitsa for your third visit to the orchestra.
I'm so delighted to be back. It's fantastic. The only thing missing, no snow. It's a big disappointment.
I'm not sure everyone here thinks the same. I think they prefer the sun.
I know, yeah.
So this is our second concert in the Rachmaninov series, and tell us a little bit about how number 2 is different to number 1 in terms of the psychology of where he was as a man at that time.
No, as pianists, we're so lucky with having all those Rachmaninov concertos because each one is so different. So we did number 1, back in fall, and it was this wonderful, naive in a way, useful piece where you could see the progress, as he went from Schumann and Grieg, all this heritage and how he waved into his musical ideas. Between number 1 and number 2, there is a real abyss. We're talking about his first symphony. It was not about piano, but the story was like he composed this great symphony. Of course, everybody had great expectations for Rachmaninov as being a real heir apparent of Tchaikovsky. And the expectations were running so high in musical circles in Russia that here comes Rachmaninov, Tchaikovsky have just died, and Rachmaninov wrote a piece, for him in memory of great artists. And here comes Rachmaninov with his major work with symphony. And there were many logistical disasters. Like one, when you have a conductor who is very famous, but who is constantly drunk.
That's not me, by the way.
No, of course. Yes, it might be a problem. So that's what happened. The symphony was conducted by, was it Glazunov?
I think so.
Yes. So, he was famous with keeping little flask of very hard liquor under his teacher's desk. Even Shostakovich mentioned those things. The symphony was premiered, and when people listened to symphony, everybody said it's complete disaster. There is nothing in it. It's a desert. There are no musical ideas, nothing in terms of Tchaikovsky or anything. Rachmaninov was so devastated with this thing. It's like he went from being almost demigod to being nothing, to being destroyed by critics, by establishment. They just flipped overnight. And he went into this one of his deepest depressions. He was not a really happy guy. And I think with composers were lucky in a ways because they didn't have all those antidepressant drugs then. Because, you give you a little bit of Prozac and they all write beautiful music. Or they don't write at all because they could just pour their emotions in music. But Rachmaninov went into this depression when he was just at home, locked himself in his bedroom, just laying on the bed, spitting on the ceiling, this Russian expression when you spit up and it comes back to you. But that's what he was doing. He didn't want to live. He didn't want to compose. He just collapsed. And the only thing that his relatives and friends could think of is, at that point, all these things with alternative medicines were very popular. And there was this famous hypnotist called Dahl, D-A-H-L. And they invited the guy to give Rachmaninov seances of hypnosis to take him out of this depression. And surprisingly, it worked. It worked to that degree that Dahl was, he was putting Rachmaninov in the state of hypnosis, and he was telling him that you are going to write the piece, which will be the most popular piece ever. Everybody is going to love it now and forever.
And they do.
And Rachmaninov comes up with this second piano concerto, which was his coming back. The piece was instant success. Everybody fell in love with it. So where he failed with his symphony, he wrote the symphony for orchestra and piano.
And you feel that this piece starts with the very depths of the instrument, almost like the depths of his soul, and just rises through that. In the third movement, you feel this sort of fugue, which he seems to be working out himself. And then we end quite victoriously.
Yes, but we can add all those, thoughts. Maybe he was reflecting some of those, but generally this is the happiest concerto of them all, in a way. And it's mature piece, and yet it's very strict. It's almost like it is written under influence of hypnosis, because usually Rachmaninov he has so many words to say in music, all those millions of notes. This concerto, in a way, it's very sparsely written. The form is perfect. It's a perfect architectural form. First movement goes up, up, up. Then there is climax. It goes down, down, down. It's perfect mountain. Then second movement, which is, there are no extra thoughts. He does not go in all those discourses as he does in number 3. There are comments on everything. There is like recitativa. He says something, and then he talks to himself about it all the time. Number 2 is the most straightforward piece, it's the most classically written concerto, and probably that's why it was so dear for people from the very beginning. And we have to remember, now we all know it, and it's so popular, we know every note, so it seems. But when people heard this piece for the first time, it was not far, it was maybe 15 years or 20 years since people in the United States heard Tchaikovsky concerto for the first time, when critic on Boston Herald said, it's just incomprehensible piece. The Tchaikovsky concerto was very modern, and this piece was accepted immediately. And it stays the same way. It's probably one of the most popular pieces ever. We all know this opening, we love it. Of course, because of movies, because of Hollywood, they took the themes from last movement. And when you play, you almost feel, people, the older generation who grew up with those movies, romantic Hollywood movies, they almost want to hum along this famous melody, the moon and empty arms and so on. So in a way, it's always very pleasant and pleasurable to play this piece every time. Same for orchestra. We both witnessed it now.
Well, it's great for us to work again together. I mean, we recorded it beforehand, and we've played it in San Francisco.
Yes.
So it's great to bring it to Norrköping together.
Yeah. So we prepared it well for this concert. We did it with the London Symphony and with San Francisco.
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah. So thank you very much to Valentina for that wonderful insight to this marvelous concerto, and we're very much looking forward to tomorrow.
Thank you.
Great.